Family. You don't get to pick the one you get. Just gotta love the one you got.
Everything kicks off with a super happy couple riding in a car. Paul, the young guy behind the wheel, was driving along with his girlfriend, Iris, who had a blindfold on. Even though she already wanted to take it off, he wouldn't let her. He had a surprise lined up for her. When they finally reach their destination, Paul steps out, opens her door, and gently removes the blindfold. To Iris's surprise, they had arrived at the grand opening of Skyview. All excited, she walks in with her boyfriend by her side. When they're about to hop in the elevator, Iris hesitates for a sec. She notices the big crowd joining them. Still, Paul talks her into staying, and they end up riding up with the rest of the visitors. Unfortunately, right when the elevator's about to start moving, it suddenly stops. Could have been a sign that something was off, but they choose not to think much of it and just roll with the experience. That's when we get a few fun facts about the Skyview Tower. It stands at 150 meters tall and weighs over 9,000 tons. It's made out of steel, reinforced concrete, and glass. Plus, the whole thing was finished 5 months ahead of schedule, which kind of makes Iris uneasy and she starts feeling a little off. Still, nothing weird happens and they manage to reach the top. Once they meet the guy in charge, he tells them he had a special spot saved for them, but cause of the big opening, the place is overbooked and there's no space left, so they gotta leave. Paul tries to explain that his buddy Jake had reserved it for them, but they're told Jake got fired that very morning, so there ain't much they can do. Right then, some big shot couple shows up, and when they see Paul looking interested, they take the chance to cut in and enjoy the attraction instead. Meanwhile, Iris starts feeling sick and steps away from the glass. Her boyfriend figures she might have a fear of heights, but the truth is she's just amazed. She's never been up this high before. Still, she tells him the night's perfect just cause she's with him. At that moment, while setting down a rose, she pricks her finger. Then she notices they're serving complimentary champagne, and while Paul heads off to grab some, she looks out through the glass and realizes just how far up they really are. She feels queasy and decides to head to the bathroom. On her way, she starts getting dizzy again and freezes for a sec when she looks down through the see-through floor, but she pushes through and makes it to the restroom. Inside, a woman comes up to her and asks how far along she is. At first, Iris denies it, but then she admits she's about a month or two pregnant, and she still hasn't told her boyfriend. The woman tells her that if she's really sure about the love he's got for her, then he won't walk out on her once he finds out. When Iris steps out of the bathroom, Paul walks her up to the top of the tower so she can get some fresh air. They both got surprises they want to share, but they get interrupted when they hear someone scolding a nearby kid for tossing coins, saying it could hurt somebody. Right after that, Paul gets down on one knee and proposes to Iris. She says yes, all emotional, and then tells him she's pregnant. They both burst with happiness. Meanwhile, we see that the kid doesn't listen and ends up throwing a coin that gets stuck in a fan. The couple heads back down and starts dancing, full of joy. But that coin jam in the fan sets off a chain reaction. Screws start flying loose and the glass begins to crack. While everyone keeps on dancing, Iris starts feeling sick again, and all of a sudden the whole structure gives way, sending half the crowd plunging down. Iris's boyfriend manages to hold on to a sheet of glass, but it can't handle the weight, and he falls too, right in front of Iris, who's frozen in shock. The rest start running, but then a fire breaks out in the kitchen. They try to escape, but there's no way out. Panic spreads, chaos takes over, and the place starts blowing up and falling apart. From trying to rush the elevator with too many people inside, the whole thing explodes too. Iris has got no clue what to do. Everything's falling to pieces around her. By some miracle, she manages to hang on, even though half the folks still left are dangling in midair. The coin drops onto a piano, and just like that, everyone still hanging falls too. The kid who tossed the coin makes it out and ends up down on the street, but just then, the piano comes crashing down right on top of him, sending him straight to the other side. And the coin? It just plops into the water like nothing happened. Iris is left all alone in the ruins, but off in the distance, she hears a kid calling for help. She risks it to go save him, but everything starts crumbling again. In the end, it's the ring that's holding up Iris and the boy, but it ain't strong enough and they both fall. Now we meet a young woman named Stephanie. Turns out what we just saw was a recurring nightmare she keeps having. What's wild is her grandma's name was Iris, just like the woman in her dream, but Stephanie don't even know if her grandma's still alive because she never got the chance to meet her. She thinks maybe the dream's got something to do with her. She opens up about it to her roommate, who tells her she really ought to look into what happened to her grandma, because if she doesn't, she might never find peace. The next day, Stefani's driving her car while her mind keeps getting flooded with flashbacks from that terrifying nightmare. When she gets home, she runs into her dad and right away asks him about some boxes her mom had packed away. She wants to know more about her grandma, Iris, but her dad tells her he already threw them all out. Then she says hey to her brother Charlie, who greets her with this cold, kind of rude attitude. Charlie says bye, telling her he's heading out with his cousins, and Stephanie decides to tag along. On the way there, she asks why he's acting like that toward her. He tells her she only ever shows up when she's on break. Before they split up, she promises to tell him a secret, but warns him he can't say a word to their dad. Stefani confesses to him that her grades have dropped and she's scared she might lose her scholarship. She explains that every time she shuts her eyes, the nightmares about their grandma Iris keep haunting her and throwing her off. Still, she feels like those dreams might actually be some kind of sign, like there's something she's meant to figure out. Eventually, they get to their cousin's place, where we meet Eric, Julia, and Bobby. Then Stephanie goes over to visit her aunt and uncle, Howard and Brenda. She comes right out and says she wants to talk about Iris, but since it's dinner time, they treat her with a little attitude. Still, when she brings up the name Skyview, something shifts. They clearly know something more. Right then, her cousins walk in and they all tell her that, as far as they're concerned, Grandma Iris is long gone, cause she was seriously disturbed. They explain that their mom's so emotionally wrecked cause of what Iris put her through. Howard jumps in and says that after their grandpa died, Iris totally lost it. She stopped letting him go to school, kept him locked in the house, and became obsessed with the worst ways someone could die. Over time, things got so bad the state had to step in and take both kids away from her. But Iris didn't let go. She tracked him down at the foster home, and when the grandkids were born, she started sending awful letters filled with disgusting photos of dead bodies. That's why the family had to move, to get away from her for good. So Howard warns his niece that for her own safety, she needs to stay far away from her grandma. After everyone leaves, Stefani tries to talk to her aunt. She begs for help with this whole thing about her grandma, saying the nightmare's taken over her life, and she believes Brenda's the only one who might be able to help her. That's when her aunt gives her the location where they kept all the letters Iris used to send them. While digging through the letters, Stefani finds a photo of Iris with her boyfriend, the exact same photo she saw in her dream, the one connected to Skyview. Looking for answers, Stefani jumps back in her car and heads out to find Iris. When she arrives, Iris tells her to leave all her electronic devices outside the house, and only then does she open the door. Stephanie feels this deep sense of fear as she steps inside, but she carefully follows her grandma's instructions. Iris recognizes her granddaughter right away. She looks just like her daughter and immediately asks how her mom's doing. Stefani says she doesn't know. Her mom left when she was just a kid, and they never saw her again. Finally, Stefani admits the reason she's come. She's been having dreams about Skyview. For the past 8 weeks, she's had the exact same nightmare. She's on a date. The dance floor collapses. There's an explosion, and she falls, dying. Iris tells her it ain't just a dream, it's a premonition. Years ago, back at Skyview, she got a close look at the future and knew death was coming. Right before her boyfriend was about to propose, Iris took a coin from a little boy and rushed down from the place. She warned everybody they had to get out of there, that they were all gonna die that night. Her warning ended up saving a lot of lives, people who wouldn't have made it otherwise. That same day, the place got shut down. They claimed it needed more repairs, but it never reopened. Eventually, it was demolished. Iris managed to stop the accident from happening, but she swears death don't like when you mess with its plans. That's why, over the years, it came back and took out everyone who was there that night, even her beloved Paul, Stephanie's grandfather. The girl don't fully understand, but her grandma explains that death always shows up, no matter what. But she'd learned how to see it coming and keep it under control for a long time, until cancer finally caught up with her. She was diagnosed 2 months ago, right around the time Stefani started having those dreams. Iris tells her it's a sign from the universe, one she needs to pay attention to. In that moment, Iris senses death getting close and quickly puts out a rope that was just about to catch fire. Stefani doesn't get it, but Iris tells her she's talking to death, so she shouldn't think she's alone. Iris has got a book filled with everything she's learned about death, and she tells her granddaughter she wants to teach her all of it, but it's gonna take time. To learn the basics, it'd be best if she stayed with her. The outside world's too dangerous. Iris hasn't stepped out in 20 years, and this house is the only place where they'll both be safe. That book's got all her research, literally her life's work. Stefani wishes she could stay, but she's gotta go back to school. Still, she promises she'll come back, but Iris insists she can't leave because she's dying, and she won't live long enough to wait for her. She tells her that death's coming for the whole family. Stephanie doesn't believe her, and her grandma can see that. The girl insists it was just a bad dream and that she's leaving, not even taking the book with her. But Iris feels like she'll die the second Stefani walks out that door. Still, she sacrifices herself and steps outside to hand her granddaughter the book. Stefani's confused, but Iris manages to give her the book. And to prove it's all real, death shows up. Iris dies right in front of her granddaughter's eyes in a brutal, horrifying way. A few days later, Stefani and her family attend the funeral. She's still shaken by what she saw, and she tells her dad and her uncle that before she passed, her grandma warned her that death was coming to take the whole family. Right then, a bus pulls up and interrupts the ceremony. It's Stephanie's mother. She wants to leave immediately, furious and not understanding why she was abandoned in the first place. Her brother Charlie tries to convince her to stay, to give their mom a chance to explain, but Stefani refuses. She says her mom was cruel and that she'll never forgive her for walking out on them and coming back like nothing ever happened. But Charlie reminds her that she kinda does the same thing, even if it's for school. Stefani tries to talk it out, but he tells her she's more like their mom than she thinks. He says he's tried calling her plenty of times and never got a response, and she only remembers they exist when she's on break. Stephanie heads back home, and while scrolling through the internet, she decides to check out her grandma's book to dig a little deeper. Later on, the whole family gathers for a meal. During the get-together, one of the cousins accidentally breaks a glass container. They clean up the mess, not noticing that a shard of glass fell into the ice tray in the freezer. Right then, Darlene, Stephanie's mom, shows up and everyone greets her with smiles. She even brings cookies for the family. But her arrival makes things a little awkward for cousin Bobby, who's allergic. Still, what really matters is that she's here now, and maybe they can finally enjoy some real family time together. They decide to make drinks for everyone, but without realizing it, one of the glasses ends up with tiny shards of glass inside. Uncle Howard takes the moment to share a few words. He says you don't get to choose your family, but you should love the family life gave you. He adds that their mom lived alone up until she passed, and that should remind them all how important it is to enjoy life and spend time together, cause once it's gone, you can't get it back. He finishes by saying he loves them all, and they raise their glasses for a toast. But then Julia starts choking. She says something got stuck in her throat and spills her drink all over the floor. Meanwhile, Stephanie keeps going through her grandma's book and comes across the coin that's tied to the incident. She reads about the different ways people can die, and right when they're firing up the grill, a fire almost breaks out, but luckily nothing serious happens. Right before Charlie takes a sip of his glass of water, his cousin calls him over to jump on the trampoline. It becomes clear that if too many people pile on, someone could get hurt, cause there's a dangerous tool hidden underneath that no one's noticed yet. Just then, a picture frame falls off the wall, and a piece of glass lands in Stephanie's hand. Howard was about to take a drink too, but he decides to go talk to his sister instead. Darlene tells him the house is beautiful, and she'd really thought about the kids when she built it. She wanted them to have a happy childhood. She's talking about her nieces and nephews, but she doesn't mean it in a bad way. Charlie, who's got love for his mom, figures Stephanie's anger will fade with time. Howard gives Darlene a key and tells her there's a spare room that's way better than her RV, and that everyone deserves a second shot. But she turns him down, convinced the kids are better off without her. Stephanie, sensing something bad is about to go down, hops in her car and speeds off to meet up with her family. We find out that the shard of glass is sitting inside her dad's drink, but he doesn't drink it because he's holding the glass while Uncle Howard climbs up onto the trampoline. The trampoline's about to give out, but luckily Darlene spots the tool hiding underneath and stops everybody before someone gets hurt. As the kids keep playing, Aunt Brenda accidentally knocks over a bottle and hits a button that starts inflating a hose. Stephanie finally shows up, and in the mix of scaring and thrilling everyone at once, someone knocks over the glass that had the shard. It shatters on the floor, but as Uncle Howard goes to hug his niece, he accidentally steps on the broken glass and cuts himself. Right then, the inflating hose causes the tools to fall, and just their luck, Uncle Howard ends up dead. Next, we see the whole family at the funeral. While Stephanie's trying to decode what's in the book, Charlie shows up, clearly heartbroken over the loss of their uncle. They hug, cause Howard was deeply loved by everyone. Then Charlie asks Stephanie what she's doing. She explains that using their grandma Iris's book, she's mapped out all the people who were at Skyview the night Iris had her vision. Every single one of them died in strange ways, and in the exact same order Iris predicted. Even though hundreds should have died that night, Iris saved them. But now deaths come back for each of them, one by one. Since there were so many survivors, and it took years to catch up to them all, it finally reached Iris, who was the last one to die, just like in her premonition. It was her and a little kid at the very end, but Iris had been ready. Stephanie insists her grandma held back death for decades, and in the end, gave up her life to prove everything she said was true. Her cousins don't get it and say Iris got nothing to do with them anymore. But Stephanie explains that while death was coming after each person on that list, the others kept building families that weren't supposed to exist, and that's why they've all been dying. There's no outrunning it. Being Iris's blood, they ain't supposed to be here either, so they're next. Stephanie says their dad and Aunt Brenda are safe since they ain't Iris's descendants. Then she reveals the next part of the pattern. Death's gonna hit each family branch by age. Since Uncle Howard was the oldest, it started with his family. Then she turns to her cousin Eric, the oldest of their generation, and tells him he's next. He doesn't buy any of it. After him, it'll be Julia, and finally Bobby. Once it's done with them, it'll move on to the other branch, starting with Darlene, then Stephanie, and last Charlie. That's how it's all gonna end. Still, the rest of the family totally rejects what Stephanie's telling them. One by one, they leave, calling her theory some wild conspiracy made up by Iris. Darlene stays behind with her daughter and admits she knew all about it, but says she never believed it was real. She tells her the best thing is to ignore what Iris said, cause believing that stuff will just ruin her life. But since Stephanie doesn't see her as a real mother anymore, she just walks away. Later on, we see Eric at his tattoo shop. While he's working, he's got to put a tongue piercing on a client. Luckily, everything goes smooth and she leaves real happy. Then Eric's coworker tells him he's closing up and heading out, so Eric's left alone to lock up. He cranks up the music, shuts the door, and starts cleaning up the shop. He grabs some disinfectant and slowly wipes everything down. Just as a little figurine's about to fall and kick off a disaster, he turns the music off to answer his cousin Stephanie. She was calling cause she was worried. Eric just tells her to go to bed. Then he throws on a sad music mix. Looking real down, he starts giving himself a tattoo. He inks the word DAD. Right as he finishes, the figurine finally drops and knocks over all his needles. While he's picking him up, the bottle of disinfectant tips too and starts spilling everywhere. Out of nowhere, a chain drops on him and snags onto his nose, piercing. The disinfectant lights up and Eric can't break free from the chain. Just when it seems like things might turn around, Eric falls right into the fire and starts burning. More disinfectant spills out, and that finally kicks off a full-blown blaze. Next morning, Stefani wakes up her brother Charlie, all worried. She tells him Eric ain't answering since last night, so they head over to check on him right away. On the way, Charlie gets a notification about a fire at Eric's shop, but then they bump right into him. Turns out Eric's alright, though his arm got burned in the fire. He even shows him the burn and the tattoo he gave himself. Stefani still looks anxious and tells him he really ought to be careful, but Eric, all stubborn, says maybe death ain't coming for them after all. Right at that moment, a bus zooms by and almost takes him out. Teasing his cousin, he says he's immortal and just keeps walking. Stephanie even tells him to back off from some kids before they nail him in the face with a ball. That's when Julia shows up and overhears everything Stephanie's saying. She rolls her eyes and walks off, telling her to stop with those dumb premonitions. But just a few minutes later, a ball smacks Julia straight in the face, and she ends up flying into a garbage dumpster. About to get crushed, everyone rushes to stop the garbage truck driver, but he's completely zoned out, music blasting in his headphones while scrolling through pics of hot girls on Tinder who'd never swipe right on him. Finally, Stephanie manages to climb up into the truck and tries to help her cousin, while the others bang on the door. Trying to get the guy to stop, Julia slips deeper inside the dumpster and gets crushed along with all the trash. Only her arm is left sticking out. Stephanie's left completely shattered. Later on, we see her crying, apologizing for getting the order wrong. The rest of the family starts to believe her now, though Eric still ain't convinced. But then Aunt Brenda drops a bombshell. Stefani didn't mess up the order, cause Eric ain't Howard's biological son. That explains why nothing's happened to him. Eric gets mad, thinking his mom cheated, but Brenda clears it up. She and Howard were going through a rough patch back then, and none of that matters now, cause Howard always loved him like his own. Still upset, Eric storms off and his mom runs after him. The rest of the family, now seriously freaked out, checks the order and sees it's legit. Next up is Bobby, but Stefani says she doesn't think she can help him cause she has no clue how his end is supposed to go. Charlie reminds her that the premonition came true exactly, except for Eric's part, since none of them knew he wasn't Howard's real son. Curious, Darlene asks how she figured it out, and Stephanie explains she's been studying Iris's book, says it works like a math equation. Darlene starts getting worried, but Marty's still not buying any of it and heads out to get some air. Meanwhile, Bobby, feeling uneasy, remembers Stefani talking about someone who beat death, and he figures that might be the key. Stefani flips through the book, but all she finds is a name, no details, nothing. That's when Darlene remembers her mother Iris used to write her letters mentioning a friend named JB, who was a doctor at some hospital. They realize the hospital's about an hour away, so they decide to all go together. Bobby doesn't want to stay behind though. He read in the book there's tons of ways to die right at home, even just falling down the stairs. So he figures he's better off sticking with the group. Just when they're about to hop into Darlene's RV, Eric steps in to help. He remembers making cookies with walnuts the other day, and since he's allergic, that might be how death comes for him. Darlene confirms she still has some of those nuts, and they clean everything up. Everyone hops in the RV, and even though Eric was about to head off, he ends up coming with them. Says he's the only brother left. On the ride over, Stefani looks through old photos her mom kept, back when they were happy and living together. But instead of feeling comforted, she's kinda bitter, says she could have had them in real life instead of just in pictures. Darlene explains she couldn't stay because Iris had taught her to see death everywhere. She thought she could handle it, but once she had kids, all she saw were 100 ways they could die. She didn't want them leaving the house and she'd snap at them for no reason. One day she caught her reflection and saw the same scared little girl she used to be with Iris. That's when she knew if she stayed, she'd ruin their lives, so she left. She ain't sure if she did the right thing, but now she's back for them. Eventually, they all get to the hospital and find the guy they were looking for, William Bloodworth. Turns out he knows all about them. First thing he asks is who's up next. Turns out William's the kid Iris saved back at Skyview. His mom had brought him to work that night. He wasn't supposed to be there, but he overheard what Iris said and made it out alive, along with the others. He was meant to die at the end. Same as Iris. For years, Iris protected her family, and him too. They shared ideas, and William even helped her reinforce the cabin. They became real friends, and he helped her get the best medical care possible considering her condition. William tells him he found someone who actually escaped death, and says there's only two ways to do it, by killing or dying. If you take a life, you get whatever time that person had left. But if you really want to break the cycle, you gotta die yourself. He tells them that a long time ago, there was this young woman named Kimberly Corman who was on death's list. When her turn came, she died, flatlined, but the doctor brought her back. That broke the chain. Still, it's crazy risky. If you challenge death and lose, things get ugly real quick. William's totally discouraged. He's just waiting on death. He ain't trying to fight anymore. He tells them straight up they're all gonna die. So he figures he'll enjoy whatever time he's got left. Says they should do the same. Life's precious, and sooner or later, later, everybody's number comes up. While Darlene's holding her kids close, trying to comfort them, Eric pulls Bobby aside. He's got a plan. He wants to kill Bobby, then bring him back to save him, and maybe even save the rest of them too. Eric heads off to buy some walnuts because of Bobby's allergy, but the vending machine jams. Still, he manages to fix it and gets the nuts. He brings Bobby into a room, locks the door behind him, then goes to grab a wheelchair. When he gets back, he forces Bobby to eat the walnuts. Right before doing it, Bobby asks Eric if he doesn't make it to take care of his turtle. So Bobby eats the walnut candy, and yeah, he starts feeling it, but Eric's gotta wait till he completely stops breathing before he can inject the antidote. Problem is, they're in a radiation room, and by some twisted stroke of fate, the machine kicks on, pumping up the radiation levels. As Bobby collapses to the floor, all of Eric's piercings start getting yanked toward the machine, then the wheelchair goes flying, and after that, Eric himself gets pulled in. In the end, Eric dies, but Bobby's still barely hanging on. He crawls across the floor toward the syringe clutched in his brother's hand, and somehow he makes it. He injects himself and survives. Right then, a nurse shows up, but the second she opens the door, a metal bar, shaken loose from the vending machine, drops down and smacks Bobby right in the forehead, killing him instantly. Just like that, both brothers are gone. The rest of the group is in shock. No one knows what to do or even what to say. The only thing they can think of is heading to the cabin. Iris managed to survive there for years and only died the day she decided to leave. When they get there, Stefani stays strapped in her seat and tells the others to go on inside without her. She promises she'll catch up in a sec, but right as they're about to enter, a massive explosion goes off. Stefani gets blasted into the water, still stuck in her seatbelt, no way to break free. Charlie watches helplessly as a utility pole crashes down on his mother, killing her on the spot. Charlie tries to reach his sister, but it might already be too late. Stephanie has drowned. Still, he manages to bring her back, and miraculously she catches her breath again. When she comes to, Stephanie realizes she died and then came back to life, which means they finally broke the death cycle. A few days later, both of them go with Charlie to an event. While she's fixing a rose on her brother's outfit, she pricks her finger on a thorn. In another scene, a woman arrives at a train station to make a purchase. As she does, a coin slips from her hand and gets stuck on the train tracks. Right then, the father of the girl Charlie's supposed to meet shows up. He says his brother saved her, but technically she never died. Her heart never stopped. She just lost consciousness. When the train comes through, that little stuck coin causes a derailment. In the end, the train car crashes down on the young people and they tragically die. And that's how this story ends.